Hey, what's going on, guys? Alex here, and we are back for another video. And this is going to be a book review. All right, so this will be the first book review that I've done. I'm someone who loves to read. I read about a book a week, probably. Don't quote me on that, but I read a lot of books, a lot of different types of books as well. And for this channel, for now, I'm going to keep it relevant to real estate investing, and money. And the book that I wanted to talk about that I just finished was Fake by Robert Kiyosaki. And if you're not familiar with Robert Kiyosaki, he's the popular author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of the foundational books that if you haven't read, go ahead and read. I mean, it really changes your mindset from employee to eventually business owner or even self-employed. It's what got me to actually want to be an entrepreneur. I shouldn't say that, but it is one of the foundational books that I've read that really led me into real estate and the business that we're in. So let's talk about it. Pretty much going to wing it under 15 minutes per usual. Have some notes here. And the book is basically composed of three different parts. It's based on, it talks about fake money, fake teachers, and fake assets. All right. And fake money, what he refers to as fake money is currency, like the dollar, anything paper related is fake. It was once backed by gold. You know, we were on the gold standard until 1971, which is when Nixon took us off. And if you look at the history of money, which I've looked into a bit, anytime a a civilization has gone to paper, it's always gone back to its natural value, which is zero, because paper is worth nothing at the end of the day. And he's talking about that since the Fed keeps printing and printing money, that it's obviously that the value of it's getting less and less, and it's only backed by confidence since it was no longer backed by gold. Basically, he's saying that the dollar and other currencies are fiat money, they're fake money, and you don't want to hold most of your wealth in currency. He talks about gold and how valuable gold is, and how gold used to be it used to be the old money. So he makes a case for gold, and how the dollar is fake, and how he talks about, basically he puts it this way. So dollars and currency are government money, which he doesn't trust. Gold and silver, which are precious metals, is God's money, or the universe's money, which which was here long before we were, and will be here long after we're gone as a species. And the new money, the new future money, which he predicts, is the people's money, which is Bitcoin, otherwise known as, you have Bitcoin, you have cryptocurrencies, and basically the technology is called blockchain, right? And this is the future money, which is going to give the power back to the people, and the power away from banks and the Federal Reserve. So he just goes into a case for why he holds, he doesn't hold a lot in gold. The way he says it, he's kind of a spiritual guy as well. He says if he wants $10,000 a month in cash flow, then he'll hold $10,000 worth of value in gold, right? That's what he says in his book. But he just makes a case for gold, and fake money, again, is anything currency related. So just be aware that the dollar is losing its value, and eventually we are probably going to get to a point where the dollar is no longer going to be around. Currency is no longer going to be around. It's going to be all Bitcoin and blockchain technology, which is why it's a good idea to start learning about this stuff now. All right, so that's a brief cap on the fake money part. Fake teachers. Basically, he makes a case that the school system that we grew up in and university is rigged to train employees, because back in the day, like I think it was the teens or the early 20s, you had these industrialists. They weren't bad people or anything. What the economy needed at that time were more employees. You can't train everyone to be an entrepreneur at that time, because it wouldn't fit what they were looking to do, right? So what they did was create an educational system that trained employees, and that educational system is the same educational system that we're in today. So it hasn't changed much, and we're basically being trained to work for large corporations. That's why they don't teach you about money in school. They don't teach you about how to be an entrepreneur. That stuff you have to learn on your own, and often pay a lot of money to learn about from other teachers, from real teachers, which I'll talk about as well. He also mentions that most teachers in schools, including universities, especially in universities, they're not real teachers. He calls them academics, meaning they've been in school their whole life, but they've never actually practiced in real life. He tells a story as far as his accountant teacher. Accountant's a very important subject within business. How he asked his accountant teacher, um, have you ever been an accountant? And his accountant teacher kind of parlayed that question with, I have a master's degree in accountancy. That was his response. And then he asked him again. He's like, are you a real accountant? And then the teacher said, I have a master's degree in accountancy. See, this teacher was in school his whole life. And then when he graduated from college, his undergraduate, he went for his master's degree in accountancy. So he thinks he knows, but he's never been a real life accountant. Therefore, he doesn't know, right? Whereas Robert Kiyosaki, who grew up learning from his rich dad, who was a powerful entrepreneur, very wealthy, knows about real accountancy and in the real world. So he could tell a fake teacher from a real teacher, being his real dad. I'm sorry, his rich dad versus his professor in this case, and basically says that he's a fake teacher because it. I mean, if you don't have real world experience, then how can you don't have wisdom? All you have is knowledge. You have unapplied knowledge, right? Wisdom is when you apply the knowledge and it comes from experience. So he makes a case that school's not going to help you. Most professors that are in school they're academics and they don't have any or very little experience in the real world. So you want to make sure that you're learning from people who are doing, not just preaching, right? That was the fake teachers part. Now the fake assets section, he goes into ETFs, mutual funds, stocks, basically anything paper assets related. He doesn't invest in. He doesn't trust it. He calls it giving your money to Wall Street. So he calls those fake assets because I guess within like mutual funds and some of these other funds, there's high fees within that, right? And the whole goal for these financial advisors is to have assets under management because that's how they make their money. Whether or not the investors who are tend to be middle class or lower middle class or even sometimes poor, when they're putting their money, call it via a 401k or a pension fund, they tend to obviously blindly give their money away because they're not professional investors. They haven't done their homework. And the fund managers are the ones that make out whether the investors loses or don't lose, right? That's what he's talking about in the book. He also talks about how a house can either be an asset or a liability depending on where the cash is flowing, right? So if you're the one living in the home and you don't have anyone living in any of the rooms, then technically you're paying the mortgage on the house, which means that's cash flowing out, which means it's a liability, right? It's not a real asset. Versus if you have a house and someone else is living in it and paying for the mortgage, then that's cash flowing in, and that's considered an asset. So he has a really simple definition between assets and liabilities and how a house can be a real asset or a real liability. Now, I know what he means by that, and cash flow is king. But then I think about my own parents, my father. I guess this is true for most middle class families. A house tends to be their highest their biggest asset, so to speak, right? It's where they have the most net worth within their house, right? But they're still making an outgoing payment. So it's unfortunate that for the middle class that their house tends to be their number one asset and that they don't have anything else where cash is flowing in. But I don't know. That's just something that I still, you know what I mean? Like just seeing my dad's situation and how his house, he has a ton of equity in it, and that's pretty much his inheritance. Yeah, it's not a, you know what I mean? It's not much, but he would still call it an asset, and I agree with Kiyosaki. I agree with him that as long as cash is flowing out, it's a liability. But had my father rented his whole life, right, then he would be worth nothing. You know what I mean? So at least he's worth something because he did own the house. So that's just a thought. But it is sad that most middle class families, their biggest asset tends to be their home. In my opinion, of course. These are just my thoughts. All right, and then he makes a case how real assets are real estate and gold. He's huge on real estate. I mean, really, at the end of the day, we're coming close to time here. Really, at the end of the day, here's what I gathered from reading all of his books. I've read his entire series, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. He has a couple others, I think, Retire Young, Retire Rich, and then this one's his most recent one. He also has Conspiracies of the Rich. I haven't read that one, actually, but I've read most of his books. At the end of the day, what he's making a case for is to be an entrepreneur. You wanna move from the ENS quadrant to the BNI quadrant. And school teaches you to be ENSs, and you have to learn on your own to become a BNI, right? So his path, if you want to be rich, if you want to be financially free, I should say, and not go the long route, which is to work for a company your whole life, save up, and within your 401k, so that one day, maybe when you're 60 to 65 years old, call it the 40 to 60 year plan, then you can finally retire and do nothing. Which, by the way, you probably don't want to do nothing when you retire, right? That's kind of a flawed mindset in and of its own. Um, but if you want to be well off and be financially free, your best bet is to create your own business. Is to create your own business and invest your profits into cash flowing real estate. And then any excess cash that you have, hold it in gold. This is his plan. He also invests in oil and other assets. He's a very sophisticated investor. But in its simplest form, what I've gathered is to create businesses that invest in real estate and have real savings, don't have fake savings in dollars, have some real savings in gold, which he's never going to sell, by the way, because he knows that as long as currency keeps going down, the value of gold keeps going up. And then what I also gathered here is to learn about blockchain, learn about cryptocurrencies, learn about Bitcoin, because this is going to be the future of money, right? Let's say that well, first of all, we're fortunate that what my channel is about is obviously about creative real estate investing on your terms, and that in and of itself is a business, right? I don't see single family homes, in my opinion, as investing in real estate. I see it as a business. It's a short term cash out because morally and ethically, our end buyer is a lease purchase buyer who's going to cash the home out. If our end buyer doesn't cash the home out, then it's not really a good business model to do that. So you always want to put your buyer in the best position to cash out the home, which means it's short term. I mean, it's like a 18 to 24 month term most times, but it's short term cash flow. It's not forever cash flow. When I think of investing in real estate, that's forever cash flow. That's having apartment buildings. That's basically having apartments, right? That you put a traditional renter in there that's going to um, pay the mortgage every single month, right? So create businesses, which is what my channel is about. Eventually, when this business is created and you have systems in place, then you invest that cash flow into cash flowing real estate. And then when you have excess cash, convert some of that into gold, right? And silver, gold and silver. And he has safes that are outside of the USA, and he holds those as he calls it real savings, right? And then what I also gathered here is to learn about blockchain and cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, because again, the value of the dollar is depreciating. It's less and less. Trust from other countries is getting less and less in the dollar. Eventually, it's going to go back to its value of zero. There's other countries that have followed this path, like Zimbabwe. I think. And don't quote me. I still need to do more homework on this part, but he makes a case that eventually we're all going to be using blockchain. And 20 years from now, the dollar might even be obsolete, right? We're not going to be exchanging cash for transactions. We might not even be using plastic anymore. It's just going to be internet money, right? And there's people that are talking about this as well. I don't have any names for you right now. I think one of them is Andreas. I heard him on a Joe Rogan podcast. But this is what I gathered from the book. Basically, you want to invest in real assets such as creating businesses and investing in real estate. You want to hold some of your cash in gold. You want to not have everything in the bank. You want to get it out of the banking system because you can't really trust the banks, in his opinion. And then you want to learn about cryptocurrencies. All right. So that's what I gathered out of this review. If you've read this book, feel free to comment. Feel free to let me know what you think, what your thoughts were. Again, this was in under 15 minutes. I just did my best to kind of give you some rapid points that I think were takeaways for me. And yeah, so that's all I had for you. Keep in mind, I always post new live seller calls each week. So if you want to get access to those before they go private within 24 hours, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell. All right. So thanks for watching, guys. Look out for the next one.